So my view is if you're running a business and you're running it profitably and you have free cash flow every year, stay the course. That's you're living a good life. If you're running a brokerage and you're feeding it every month with your own personal resources.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. I'm excited to have on Norma Rawlings. She's been in the industry for a couple of decades, over 2 decades for sure. She has done lots of stuff from selling to brokerage. Now her main business is helping find, I guess, create valuations for brokerages to help with the sales. She has a BA in French and she's a Juris Doctor, a JD in law. And if that wasn't enough, she also has an MBA in business administration. So that is a very well educated Norma of it. She has a great background in business and legal. And she's going to be, I'm excited to have her on the show today to talk about how other brokers potentially could tee up their business for a sale and what are the pitfalls and things like that. With that, Norma, thank you for coming on the podcast.
It is my pleasure, Daniel. I'm glad that you're still having it despite your foot and a half of snow.
Again, today's working from home or working from the office. I don't know if it really matters anymore, but it's all good. And you being a Canadian, I was saying before that a foot and a half of snow is like a dusting for you.
So I have four children, Daniel, and two of them are hockey players. And so we used to live in Toronto, which is Canada's biggest city, about 6.4 million people in the area. And because they were both drafted to the Sudbury Wolves, which is about 4 hours north of Toronto, that's where I currently live. So yes, it is a mere dusting for us, a foot and a half of snow.
So, four kids, I thought you would have had more so you could have had a full side of a hockey team.
Or
That
a
would have
dog
made
sled team, yes.
exactly. So I think you said that you also have, you enjoy going to the gym, but you also, your daughters, I guess, horseback,
Yeah, I
they're
have a
involved.
horse. They ride horseback. They also play volleyball. And my little one sings. So I am constantly on the move with the children's activities, that's for sure.
Exactly. You saying that you're a hockey mom, really, I thought that was a requirement to maintain your Canadian citizenship, is that you have to be a hockey mom.
It's funny you say that. I always tease that hockey is Canada's national religion because Sunday morning we are at the rink. And oftentimes 6, 7 in the morning, we are at the rink on Sunday mornings. Yes.
As an Islander fan throughout my life, we are very happy to have one of a Canadian import. The 18-year-old is unbelievable. And
He's
I don't want,
unbelievable. He's
I
he's
don't,
my he's my boy's best friend, Kayshawn Aitchison. He's an unbelievable kid. He actually lived with us.
no, so that's now I gotta hit you up for tickets for the next time. So I've seen him play a couple times this year. He is unbelievable. You don't want to say the words Gretzky or whatever, but he is so mature for an 18-year-old, and he's making the Islanders actually believe again that they could try to get their fifth Stanley Cup championship. So it's been a
Yeah.
long. I was a little boy when they won four in a row, and it's been quite a while, decade.
I was going to say it's been decades. So Kayshawn Aitchison. So I have my two boys are twins. They're a minute apart, and Kayshawn is like the third brother. And so during COVID, Daniel, we would have him for 6 to 12 months, 2 years running, because in COVID, when you're on your own as a kid, it's brutal. Whereas when you're involved, we have four kids, so adding a fifth was easy. So my two boys and him are just an absolute riot together. They're a wrecking crew, the three of them. It's fun to watch, and he has a ton of potential, ton of personality, loves to fight, loves even more to score goals. He's going to be a great addition to the Islanders.
That's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about how you come to your what you've done in real estate and how now you've pivoted into helping brokerages value. I guess do you generally value it for the buyer, or you generally try to value it from a broker and then try to help them position themselves for a sale?
So both. So what we do three things. We value real estate brokerages. We help sellers successfully exit and sell their business, and we also help buyers buy real estate brokerages. So those are the three services we provide. So the valuation is generally the starting point for a sale process. So it's similar in your world to going to a house and getting a feel for what the value is, right? So it's like an appraisal. So we'll go in and we'll say to a potential seller, okay, give us all your information, and then we'll give them a snapshot of the 20 metrics that go into the value of their brokerage. And when somebody like you receives that document, you can do a few things. You can say, okay, Norma, let's find me a buyer. Or you can say, I'm not really happy with the value yet. I'm going to work on some of those metrics over the next year or two to increase the value and then look to sell. Or the third thing you can do is you can say, okay, I'm going to use that to sell to my child, sell to my management team, do some estate and tax planning. So those are the three actions that a broker takes when they receive a valuation.
I, that's a that's interesting. Over the last year, about what percent would be selling to outside entities, and what percent would be like what you just said of a family member, a friend, or a management team?
I would say 75% sell to outside entities and 25% have some sort of management buyout or familial succession plan. So we're dealing with a real estate broker in Ottawa, which is Canada's capital city, and she has three children. And so what we're doing is we're valuing the brokerage and then we're structuring a succession plan as to how she can transfer the ownership to those three children. And interestingly enough, only two are actively involved with the business. So that's very fulfilling for me because you're trying to figure out a plan that will ensure that the children continue, and children, I mean their 40s, 50s, but will continue to collaborate together, have a good relationship, and you treat everybody fairly. So that's an example of that succession piece. We had another broker in Wyoming and they have three children. They wanted to exit entirely. And so they had us value the brokerage and then they had us help them find an ideal buyer to buy the brokerage. So that was also a really good transaction. Happy people on all sides.
In the case of the your first one in Ottawa, does the third one buy out the other two and has no, is that generally what would happen?
So it's a great question because we've seen a bunch of different things. So let's take the three children as an example. Sometimes we have another client in Minnesota, and his grandpa and his dad both owned the brokerage. He's one of a couple of siblings, but he was the only one who wanted to buy the brokerage. So he bought the brokerage, and his siblings did not. The Ottawa example, Daniel, she wants all three to own, even though only two are active. So the two that are active are paid a salary from the brokerage, plus they have their percentage of profit sharing, whereas the third one is only entitled to profit share and he participates on the board of directors in sort of strategic decisions, but he's not paid a salary by the brokerage.
It's interesting because in real estate, it feels like so that you really need to have an embedded benefit, right? Or capital or value of the property. Otherwise, you would think that in the case you, even if it's children, you just start your own brokerage and not have to have that. So it's interesting for me to
Yeah.
see that there's a value. For me, I've had people that have come and asked me to merge or to buy, but the whole point of me doing my brokerage is so I don't have to listen to anybody, and I only have to do what I feel is right and what the follow rules and laws, but not listen to this is the way we've done it or whatever. I guess it I guess as I get older, if I'm trying to then extract the value for the brokerage, then it would be something that would be important to me. But at this point, I feel like although I do look old, the gray hair and beard does that. But I'm still at 57 years old, not ready to hang up the hat yet.
You sound like the prototypical entrepreneur, right? The prototypical entrepreneur is you can make $10,000 a year working for yourself, or you can make 100,000 working for somebody else. And the prototypical entrepreneur is I'll make the 10,000 because then I can make my own decisions and I'll try to get up to more than 100 grand a year. So that's very common in the real estate brokerage industry, that independent minded approach. And it's the reason you've been successful. It's the reason entrepreneurs are successful in general. What's interesting about what you said, though, is when you start a brokerage, you often don't think about the end value, right? You just open your doors and you start to sell real estate and you start to attract agents. And what's great is that if you create a business that has a consistent cash flow, and when I say consistent, real estate's obviously like this, but over the years, if you, let's say your business throws out 100,000 a year consistently of cash, that is valuable. And so what we'll do is we'll look at 20 different metrics, but one of them, which is very compelling, is we'll put a multiple on that cash flow. And all of a sudden, that 100,000 a year that you've been generating means that your brokerage is probably worth in and around 300 grand. So that's sellable. That's something that a third party broker will pay you for.
Except in the case of me, where if 50% or 60% of the revenue comes from me, then it's different, right? Because someone's not going to want to buy the cash flow that is basically my cash flow, nor so that's really where it gets to where it gets interesting, right? Where somebody would offer you, you're like, why would I want to take that? I'll keep doing what I'm doing. Um,
Yes, and it depends exactly. And it depends on your objectives. So we have some brokerages like yours where the owner and broker is the primary source of total gross commission income. And you're right that it impacts the value because anybody buying you is going to want to keep you. And the question is, do you want to stay without ownership? For sure. What we find though over time is as our lives change, sometimes 20 years from now, you might say, okay, you know what, Norma? I'm ready. I'm ready to just sell the brokerage, not have the burdens of ownership because being a broker is tough. You midnight on Saturday, if a deal's going south, you're the one to get that call. And you're responsible for it ultimately. And so at some point, people go, oh, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to transfer the burden to somebody else and I'll just sell. We've had a lot of brokers actually transition to the highest salespeople in the buying brokers business because they want to spend more time with grandkids or they want to follow their kids around and watch them play sports or they just want to retire, right? We had an Arizona broker a couple years ago and he said, Norma, I've had a great run. I've had a fantastic time. I've made so many friends, colleagues, everything's great. I just want to travel now. I don't want to do it anymore. So ages and stages, you may get there.
I think I love that. So you're right. It's all based off of what the goal was. For me, creating a franchise or creating a brokerage was really once to be able to be autonomous and be an entrepreneur. Exactly. And so what's interesting is there's also what people always like to say is scaling, right? And so to me, I don't scale for the sake of scaling because because everything the more that you scale, then more you don't always make more money when you scale. You might be bigger, but I've been told by other brokers that they feel that their sweet spot is generally 20 to 30 producing agents is a happy medium where you're not too big, where you have and too much fixed costs and you can't you too much time. You're not able to have anything on your own, and also that where they've maximized maybe their actual take home, right? Because it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And I tell that to people all the time.
It's so true. And what's with and tying that into real estate brokerage, Daniel, you if you don't have the cash that you're generating every year, you can have 300 agents. You don't have a business that has value because unless there's free cash flow at the end of the day that you're generating, there's not a lot of value to that business. Someone might buy the 300 agents, but they're not going to pay you what they would if you ran. So I'm dealing with a luxury brokerage in Texas, and luxury metrics are different, right? They've got 40 agents. They spit out 700,000 a year of profit. So you're absolutely right. It's all about how do you approach the business? How much time do you want to spend managing your agents? Are your agents productive? And at the end of the day, once you take the gross commission income minus all those expenses, what do you end up with in your pocket?
Yeah.
That's and that's the cash flow that we value when we look at the value of your business.
I think you would see me as a unicorn and laugh a little bit because so my brokerage last year we did 90 million in revenue. Sorry, 90 million in sales,
Yeah.
2 million in GCI gross revenue
Yeah.
on 155, 160 deals. I personally did
Which is
50.
incredible. Those are great numbers.
You're laugh because we were very small. I personally did 55 deals at 40 million with a million GCI. It's again, but and then ask me how many staff I have.
You're going to shock me, but I'm going to assume you probably have three or four.
Zero.
Yeah, that's insane.
I have no full-time employees. I have someone that helps with lead generation and then someone else, but that's it. But you'll also laugh that when this, so if I did 55 deals last year and half of them were probably listings, I'm the guy that goes, puts the sign in the lawn. So,
You
because you
you
know what?
you
I
do
have
soup
to,
do soup to nuts. You do soup to nuts.
but because you know what? When you have to know what's your secret sauce. And
Yeah.
so, and so the other thing is I'm on the newer end of real estate because I'm an old man now, but I've been doing this as my 10th year. And I've owned a franchise for eight or my brokerage. It's yeah, so it's basically soup to nuts because I figured I couldn't come in and be the biggest because there were people that have been doing it a lot longer than me.
Yeah.
So why would somebody want to work with me? I'm going to work hard, right? And I'm going to
Yeah.
always answer my phone and my texts and always be available and do things better, different, and special that I can do with being the flexibility of an entrepreneur. So that was my why and why I'm able to now, like, from the leads that I pay for my team, I don't take any of them because I'm able to use my circle of my sphere of influence and my clients from previous sales who want to do more with me. I've had clients that I've done 10 deals with from buying,
Which
from selling, from investments, from friends. And it's like that's what's amazing about the real estate world is you really can make your own path and just and try to like and I don't my thing is I don't need to be better than anyone. I just need to be the best me. So if I can be the
I
best
was going to
me,
say, it's that high touch, strong relationship focus, do the right thing, work hard, always be available. That's unusual. And your clients react to it because they know that you care about their house, whether it's selling it or buying it. It's that high touch piece that it's interesting because as I said, I have four children, and the way they deal with the world versus the way you and I would deal with the world is very different. And so that relationship connection, high touch approach, I think is tremendously successful because so many people don't approach the world that way anymore.
so I it's also so it's interesting me being in my 10th year, I'm an empty nester. So also got involved in it when my children were older. I had already been coaches. I coached their soccer, their basketball, their
Yeah.
baseball, their softball. So I already had that. And so I didn't because I don't know if here's a secret. We work on weekends. That's the thing, right? And so I didn't have to. The funny thing is, years ago, I was approached to do a job to actually sell assisted living. And I would have to work one day on the weekend. And this
Yeah.
was when I was in the middle of my coaching. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm either coaching games or coaching practices. And I'm like working one day, what is that? And now it's like we work every day. And that now you
Yes.
have to work on the weekend. So a lot of it is I have an MBA as well, and I have 20 years before in the beverage world and sales and marketing. And then I come into this, which actually I think also made me a better real estate person because I've owned real estate. I'm being older. I have connections that can help me with things. You understand the world a little bit different, right? When I started at 45 than you would at 25 or 30, right?
Oh, for sure. And you bring with you that community of people who know you're a good guy. And that's worth its weight in gold when you put out your own shingle and start to sell and buy houses because people want to deal with people they know and trust.
So the funny thing about the shingle is also, I also say that it doesn't matter whose sign is on your lawn because with the multi-listing services, everybody and this beautiful thing called the internet, everybody sees that the house is on the market. Where you need to differentiate yourself is holding open houses, to be available, to have professional pictures, to answer the phone when people call, to be a communicator, to put deals together, not break them apart, right? That sign, it's me that's on, that's basically doing it, not whatever brand. I personally happen to feel that I guess I could have always done the Daniel Berger real estate company, but I felt that having that balloon had years of experience. And especially for people that don't know me, I think that was a little bit like, oh, I've heard of Rematch. So like they're like,
Yes.
they'll give you the chance, but after the entree, it's not about the balloon, it's about me.
It's about you taking care of their needs and obtaining the results that they desire. But I agree with
Yeah.
you. The Remax balloon, I think some studies show it's the most recognized name in real estate by consumers.
On Canada, it's also tremendous.
Oh
Canada,
yeah,
I think
Canada's on fire
Canada,
with Remax.
it's
Yeah,
and,
Canada's growing like crazy.
I also heard that they just have a huge number of agents just went over to a Remax, like 200 or something of a high performing. What's interesting is with technology has been incredible, right? Because you can argue back in the day, you would have to go into a brick and mortar real estate office. They would say, "Oh, what town are you? Oh, I only have this town, right? If you want a different town, I can't help you. I can help you in this town. And here's the book, and I'm going to open the book, and the keys in the book, and we're going to go see three houses today, or what have you." Also, that was a little different because that those people probably only represented the seller, and the people that were coming in were basically being guided. And so the market's really opened up that you can have buyers agents representing buyers and sellers agents representing sellers, which I actually like. I think that's great that there, so that's a cool thing. And then also you didn't have the internet, right? By the time
Yeah.
now that people are seeing things, they've already walked through the house. They've had videos, they've had tours. So the time that you walk in the house, they know so much more about the house now than they would have 20, 30, 40 years ago, where they wouldn't have they'd known anything about the house,
Yeah, no,
right?
it's true. The information age, the information that we have now and the efficiency that it creates is quite incredible. And as you said, it goes back to your comment about you need great pictures. You need to be able to show people what the house looks like and how it viscerally connects with them through those photos.
One problem is people are cheap, right? So not all agents are created equal, and not every there's a thing about you have a wall of degrees. I have 2 degrees, but you don't need a degree to get into this. All you have to do is pass a license. You take a
Yeah.
70 to 80 hour class and pass a test, and you're an agent. And so it's not like a doctor where you have boards and the bar, you have to pass the bar, right? So there's the proficiency of being an agent is so low. And because it's entrepreneurial, people are like, why would I want to spend $800 on or $1,000 on pictures and video? Because the house is going to sell the first weekend. I do it because I want to make sure that anyone can go search any of my houses that I've ever sold, and I try to be the most professional as possible. So at some point, you have to do things that you know that you feels right and it's going to help your business, even if no one's like, you have to do the right thing even if no one else is going to notice it sometimes.
Yeah, but you know what? That's a trait that when you look to buy a brokerage, you look for. You like people who buy brokerages want to buy from sellers who have integrity, who have high standards, who are consistent in the way they deliver. And your results would say that's you, right? Every year you're doing a certain amount of gross sales volume because you don't compromise on photos and videos and the professional nature in which you present a house, even if you know it's going to sell within the first weekend because that's just the market. Right now, the market in New York State is a little different than it was 3 or 4 years ago. So those things are even more important because you need to have somebody viscerally connect with a property ahead of time. You want them to seek it out because it's more of a buyer's market than it was during COVID when it was a crazy seller's market.
No, that's more New York City. I'm licensed in Connecticut.
You're closer to the water.
No, I'm more north, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like the borough, I'm the county north of New York City.
So
But I
do
also
you have a
do,
lot of Manhattan, do you have a lot of Manhattan clients, or do you have clients who only go to the city when they have to do business there?
so our area is a suburb, right? So it's a suburb of New York City, north of the city. And I also am licensed in Connecticut. So I do that as well. So it is some people that are moving out of the city. What's interesting is the city is 5 boroughs, right? So maybe not necessarily Manhattan. I think more of us moving is more from the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens might
Got
be
it.
moving up, or apartment dwellers that are now, ready to start a family, and then they move to the house with a white picket fence or something to that effect.
Nice.
And so you can commute. So what's crazy is it's still a seller's market here. There's not enough inventory. I just did a house. It was a crazy story because it's someone that I know. They weren't ready. They're young. They're having twins. They weren't ready to buy anything yet. And then I'm in LA visiting my son, and they went to an open house and they wanted it. They didn't even have a pre-approval yet because we were like pre them looking. We were discussing them looking. And I'm getting on the airplane, I'm setting them up with the lender. We're figuring everything out. On the plane, I
Just gonna
had
say you
access
paid
to
for
internet.
the Wi-Fi.
I no, it was Delta. It was actually free. But I'm pulling up like the information from the village of the house, right? About all the COs and all that other stuff. And I'm told it just went on Thursday. This is now Sunday. They're like final invest tomorrow at 1 o'clock. If in order for them to get this, they're going to have to probably waive a mortgage contingency. They're going to have to waive the appraisal contingency and maybe even the inspection. And who wants to waive the inspection? It's not a good idea. And I know the people. I've been to their wedding. I went on a golf trip to Scotland with the child. I know the family. So I'm like, yeah, we can't do that. So as I'm on the plane, I basically set up at 8:30 Monday morning. I had an inspector at the house who was just doing, he was doing an inspection, but it was really just a showing. And that 1 o'clock that afternoon was when offers were due. So we had
Brilliant,
an
though. That's
we
because you
we had,
wanted to reassure them that there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it.
and the kids went to work, the parents came, and so the parents were there during when the inspector, they could ask any questions that they wanted, and it got the thumbs up. So everyone's okay, good. This is the house that we thought it was. So I was able to then waive everything. The lenders, there is no way they're not getting the loan, blah, blah, blah. So really, and there were 19 offers, 19 offers. They had
Daniel,
150.
that's crazy. That reminds me of COVID. It reminds me of the craziness during
Where
COVID.
so what's interesting is when people talk about, oh, are you gonna use bots, or you're gonna me opening, I didn't even open the door for them because they went during the open house. So an agent's not about opening a door for people. That is the least of what we do. What we do is everything else. And how did I get them comfortably to contract? That's where what we do. And
So
so what's interesting is
you won out of the
I
19 because you were clever in the way you did your due diligence ahead of time for them.
and I the offer just below us was an all cash offer. So it turned out that the agent didn't really know the agent, and she knew me. I've done deals with her before. So she knew that my client I'm getting to the closing table because that's all that they met. And they were pushing us on the timing. They wanted it faster. And they knew that I'm like, I can get it done. So what's interesting is as the world feels like it's going to chat GPT
Yeah.
and an AI, and I am so shocked when agents and brokers are like, oh, I use a bot to start communicating with my new people. I'm like, if anything, that's the opposite. It should be the human touch of texting and calling because first off, maybe in the future they won't know if it's a bot, but right
Oh,
now
but people
people
do.
know it's a bot,
Oh,
right?
yeah. People need to know they're dealing with a human or they turn off.
And so people are like, I do that so I can scale. You go, I did 55 deals at 40. How much more? So my point is, how much more do I want or
Yeah.
need? Or so that's where bigger is not always better.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
And so if you so I'm like, I'm not a fan. I don't need that. I don't want that. Even having I don't have a transaction coordinator. And it's not because I can't afford it, because I clearly can, because a lot of transaction coordinators make no money because they're in Asia. Um, and the point is, why do I want those people talking to my clients? I'll talk to my clients and I'll like a memo of sale is not the hardest thing to do. And if you do 55 deals, so that's of the ones that close, but it's not that hard to take the information and to edit a document and to send it saying this is from me, as opposed to, oh, anything that you want, here's someone in my office, you must, everything goes to them. I'm just like, that puts me off so much.
Yeah, as I said, you run a high touch brokerage, right? You are going to make sure the client knows that you are involved with every aspect of it, and that resonates with them.
Yeah, so the scaling for the sake of scaling, I isn't something that, so I'm lucky also because we have, maybe I have five full-time agents and then others that are part-time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people say things like, I've heard other brokers say, you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough. And I'm like, you be, my job is to have independent contractors that are agents, and my job is to help them grow their business.
Yeah.
But I can't want them to do more than what they want to do. So if there's someone
Yeah.
that's part-time and that's good for them, I don't care what their volume is because as long as they're doing their volume properly, they're engaging clients, they're following, they're dotting I's, crossing T's. I don't care if they do 1 to 4 transactions a
Yeah.
year, whatever it is, because what does it matter?
Yeah. As long as, exactly, as long as they're contributing to your bottom line and they're fulfilling their own objectives, it's good.
Well, contributing, so that's interesting. So contributing as opposed to taking away. So if they're taking away
Yeah.
from my bottom line, then it's negative, and I and potentially wouldn't want that. Um,
Yes.
but if they did something last year, the year before, and then this year they're a break even, if it's a break even, then it's really it doesn't matter to me. But you're right. You don't necessarily want it to be a loss, but contributing is also, it depends. But I have some people where they're like, they're really doing other things, but when their listing comes up, they're like, here, you take it. Like, you do it for me because I'm too big, or we'll do it together. And I generally will do that. And I generally another thing you'll laugh at when I do that is I have that one right now that I was supposed to close today. He's really a renovator. He has great, but he'll buy them with me, but I take the same cut as if I did absolutely nothing. And then he puts on, I'm about to sell a beautiful house for $1.2 million. And it's his, and it's basically, I'm the listing agent. I'm selling it really for him. I take no extra money. And if I did nothing, right? Which is, so it's, but again, you get a listing and you get to bring people in, and it's good for the brokerage because I have other brokers doing open houses to try to find buyers. And ultimately, I did all the work, but ultimately, he's never going to leave me because that's a pretty good deal for him.
Yeah, and actually the win-win nature is important, right? When we put together a sale or a purchase, you have to have a win-win, same as you do broker to agent. You have to make sure that both sides have a mutual benefit or it doesn't work.
And so for me, it's okay. It's a $1.2 million listing. I'm going to have beautiful pictures, beautiful video. It's going to sell. I'm going to get the MLS credit, right, that I sold because I did sell it. And then the difference of if I get a 30% cut as the broker, some people like you should have split it 50-50 or whatever, but that's really less of that's less of my why. So it's more trying to get houses that look beautiful and getting them through. And yeah, so a win-win, I think that's the whole point of not having to say this is the way we've always done things, but to try to
Right.
always look for the
Yeah.
win-win.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
you have the flexibility, right? You have the flexibility as the owner, as that entrepreneurial owner, that you can do whatever splits you want, which is wonderful. It's so six productive agents plus you is an interesting size because what we find with our brokers who want to buy, right? We call it recruiting through acquisition, is they will, the minute, as you said, the minute you get to 25, 30, all of a sudden you need scale because you're implementing systems more arbitrarily across your entire agent base. Whereas at your size, Daniel, you can make a rule for each specific listing that is a win-win for you and the agent. So it gives you, I think, more flexibility than someone who's running 100 agents or more, where there has to be some consistency across the board. Like we find that are selling, the people who want to sell are not able to cover their expenses with so few agents, whereas you, again, because you're entrepreneurial and you look for the win-win, you're doing great. You've got a huge book of business yourself. The six agents are productive, they're happy, you're feeding them leads. It's a win-win.
So for me, my math a little bit was if based off of the best split I could ever get, if I bring a team on and if their net paid for like my rent and paid for
Yeah,
my insurance fees and paid for all the lock boxes and the signs, right? Then I would actually make my split go to 100% technically, right? Because I'm having the other people pay the percent
yeah,
that I would have to give to other people. And that's been the goal. But again, I don't recruit agents. They generally come to me, and it doesn't need to be that many because at some point, the funny thing is people always talk about like budgeting. I don't do budgeting. I've never I don't do it because I can't predict what my listings are going to be next year
right.
because people die, people
Yeah,
move, people get
yeah,
transferred. I can't control, but what I can control is blocking and tackling, dotting I's, crossing T's, and
yeah,
always doing the right, being available, having some marketing, whether it's in magazines that I do, I'm on some handy wipes in CVS stores, and have your brain. I write a book. Write a book is not a bad way for people to be able to find
yeah.
you. Do
Especially your adventures book,
right.
as you and I talked about before we started filming, the handguns and the adventures of everyday real estate in New York State is never dull, far as I can tell.
Those, yes. And there was another one where I had to go to a cemetery to go look for footstones to see if an obituary from 1940s had a typo in it or if there was actually another offspring of the family. So that was those are true stories. Yeah, so the book's a funny thing because my family said, "Dad, what you're what you do is not that interesting. No one's going to care about it and it's going to suck." Right? That's
They're
basically what
always
they
our
said.
harshest critics, Daniel. They're always like, "You're not all that interesting, Mom. Dad, you're not all that
And,
interesting. You're
and
not."
exactly. So I ended up, my co-writer was actually my son's girlfriend, and she was a senior at college, and I got her, and she wanted to do publishing. So I'm like, okay, we're doing the, and she said something about a ghostwriter. I'm like, I'm not letting you do my book if you don't, I'm putting your name on my book because I want you to care enough that I'm putting your name, and I want you to get credit that you've written a book. So she was like, as told to my story, she taped it, she wrote it up, and then she did a very good job. And then I tried to have an editor come who was basically like he used AI and messed up much of it and took
Yep,
it out
the
of my
authentic
words.
tone.
I lost the authentic tone and all this other stuff. So my wife, God bless her, she basically spent a good 6 to 8 weeks with both copies, the AI version and Bailey's version, and merged them together into what people actually, the reviews are pretty good. And when people read it, they're like, it's a light read. It's not preachy or anything like that. And it was basically people were like, it was interesting. I couldn't put it down and things like that. I'm so lucky because without my wife actually editing properly, it wouldn't have been. My kid's premonition might have been correct, um,
And now you
but
proved them wrong.
we proved them wrong. And my son, I let my son and my wife actually on the back of the book on the book jacket with my son's basically was like, I hate real estate, but this book is okay. And what he also
That's
had said is
high
the book is
praise indeed. High praise indeed from your son.
exactly from a 22-year-old. I think that's pretty good. And I think he also said something to the effect of the book is better than I thought the book is better than I thought it could have been.
They keep
But
us humble, Daniel. They keep us humble.
exactly. 4 kids is that's insane in itself. So I have two and I'm from three, but I have two and I do have two dogs though. So while I said I'm an empty nester, I do have two dogs and one of my dogs had spinal surgery. So she can't use her hind legs. So when we walk her, we put her in a wheelchair. But
That that
so
is using gallows humor. That is quite hilarious, right?
so
You have to really love a dog to let her use
yes.
a roller.
Yes, and she's living her best life, so it's all good. But what do you see as the future of real estate from an independent brokerage still work? Is it time to sell? What do you see if you looked at your crystal ball? What do you see the next 6 months, year, 5 years?
So the Compass Anywhere merger has created a ton of uncertainty in the marketplace, and it's made a lot of brokers and frankly brands try to figure out if they're big enough, if they're doing the right things. It's creating opportunities for brands like LPT and Aperture. It's a fascinating time of massive change right now because if you think about Compass and Anywhere, they're taking 10 brands, Daniel, and they're trying to figure out what to do with all 10 competing brands in all these different cities and towns. And that's going to take them, I think, years to figure out. And then you have this all this litigation between these big behemoth companies trying to control the private listing world and trying to control the data and trying to control the customer. And so my view is, if you're running a business and you're running it profitably and you have free cash flow every year, stay the course. That's, you're living a good life. If you're running a brokerage and you're feeding it every month with your own personal resources, then I think that's a time to look at, okay, let me see if somebody will buy it from me, because why am I going into debt every year to keep this business running? We have a lot of brokers in their 60s, 70s, 80s, even early 90s. We've had it like two. And at that stage, people are looking to slow down. And so we've seen a lot of profitable brokerages sell because people want to retire. They want to exit with cash in their hands. So that's a motivator for people selling. But if you run your brokerage profitably, it's a good life, right? You know
I,
that personally. Like, it's a
I,
fulfilling life. You have clients whom you like. You have every day you have something, you're busy. It's fulfilling.
yeah, I agree that and again, so it's people say what I did last year really doesn't have an effect to what I do this year. But if I can keep my fixed costs low, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if my revenue is 50% what it was last year, but my fixed costs are low. I'll still have positive cash flow,
Yeah.
which is fine, right?
Which
Um,
is the key, right? It's if you have positive cash flow, time is your friend. You don't have a gun to your head. You don't need to do anything. Whereas if your cash flow is negative, then you need to act. And so we've done a lot of deals where people are not succeeding at running a brokerage. And in that situation, we have buyers who come in, and there's no money down in those situations, Daniel. Like, you don't pay a fee to transfer ownership of the brokerage. What you do is you take on certain of the expenses that work for you, you take on the agents, and then you pay the selling broker out over 2 or 3 years based on performance. So it's a really good metric for both parties. The selling broker gets rid of an expense that's costing them personal money every month, and the buying broker gains scale for no money down. So we've done a lot of those deals in the last 12 months. We've also done a lot of deals where it's a profitable brokerage. It's spitting out 100,000, 400,000, 700,000 of cash every year. And the broker just wants to exit for some reason, whether it's they're older and they want to retire. We had one tragically in Maryland in December die. And so we managed to sell the brokerage just before he died. He had cancer. So a lot of different scenarios why you would want to sell. But when you have a profitable brokerage that generates consistent cash flow, it's worth money. And people will pay a third down and two-thirds over the next 2 years, or 25% down and 75% over the next 3 years. There's all sorts of structures that actually where you receive cash on closing. And what we find as well is what we do is we run a sales process confidentially, because as you can imagine, if you were to wake up tomorrow morning and go, you know what, I'm done, I don't want to be a broker anymore, I want to sell, the last thing you want to do is call your competitor and say, I'm thinking of selling, because
I,
they're going to be on the phone to those six productive agents of yours the next moment saying, come to me, Daniel's retiring, Daniel's looking to sell. So what we provide is that confidential sales process. So it allows us to get you a bunch of different buyers interested without them knowing it's you until they've signed NDAs and there's no rumor mill that starts.
That's great. Thank you. We could talk for hours. You're lovely to talk to. You're a wealth of knowledge. Can you explain how people can get in touch with you? It's Broker VMA is the
Yeah.
name of your company, but if somebody who's listening is interested in selling in North America, how do they reach out to you and your partner?
So my partner's in Bradenton, Florida. I am in Toronto, Canada area. BrokerVMA.com is the best place to reach us. All our contact details are there, and it provides a lot of resources for anyone thinking about either expanding, like recruiting through acquisition, or selling and exiting a winner. So those are lots of resources on the website, along with information about valuations and a page out of your book. We wrote a book last year called The Complete Guide to Buying and Selling Real Estate Brokerages. So it gives 10 steps to success for someone thinking about buying or selling a brokerage. I have no dead bodies. I have no guns. I have no crazy stories in there. It's more sort of a practical guidebook. So it's nowhere near as interesting as yours, but very practical.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for your knowledge, and it was great talking to you. And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thank you,
Uh,
Daniel.
So, everyone, thank you again. This is Daniel Berger with the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I appreciate again Norma coming on. And until next week, thank you very much. If today's stories opened your eyes, wait till you see what's next. Hit the video on screen to join the next adventure with Daniel Berger.